Hey guys, Purple Engine 95, recording live from your local county prison cell. It is the last week, as far as I know, right? No, it's the third week of the Pride Month episodes, right? We might have one more week after this. I don't know. Anyway, and I'm kind of cheating here because I'm not really, because nothing about this fight is actually Pride related. I mean, I just needed a break from trying to find good ones. And this is a fight I've wanted to do for a while. So let's lie and say this is Polly, I guess. And that is a joke for legal reasons. That is a joke. I'm not suggesting that Polly is part of the LGBT community. I'm not suggesting that these two individuals represent polyamorous relationships. But yeah, so this is Issei Issei from High School DxD, and Tatsumi, just Tatsumi from Akame ga Kill. I have seen Akame ga Kill, and I am familiar with the manga. I've only seen, like, literally for the sake of this fight, individual fight scenes from High School DxD. I've never actually watched it, which is weird, because if you had asked somebody which of these two shows I would have watched in high school, it probably would have been, they would have thought High School DxD. But yeah, and these two have a bunch of stuff in common. They're both imbued with the power of dragons. They both represent unlimited potential. They're both harem protagonists. Tatsumi less so. Like, Tatsumi just coincidentally, because he's, they just throw it into the show. But, like, High School DxD is literally just a harem anime. And that's what it's meant to be. It's not really meant to be anything else. So let's get into it with Issei, because I don't want to talk about him more than I have to. So Issei is descended from demon blood, as is pretty much everyone in High School DxD, except he is weak. He is exceptionally weak at the beginning of the show, but then he obtains the power from a legendary Welsh dragon of legend, and his right arm becomes a dragon arm, and he ends up gaining a bunch of innate power from this. One of those abilities is to channel demonic energy into blasts, which he calls, like, dragon shot or something, I think. And yeah, that base form has the ability to destroy a mountain, right? He also gets another number of abilities where he can snap his fingers and remove clothing. Like I said, it's a harem anime. He can also use it to, like, disenchant spells, so there's some attempt at legitimacy there. Unlike the ability to communicate with breasts and the ability penetrate, which is meant to give him, let him bypass, like, barriers and magical force fields and whatnot. But he has also trained a version of this ability to look through clothing by just using his eyes. So yeah, this guy's a fucking scumbag. I'm researching this, I'm just like, come on, like, let me just watch the show. You ever have one of those shows? Ooh, actually, wait 1 second. Can I do this? Does this work? That is a game changer. Oh my god, I finally got something to settle the phone on. The camera on. Anyway, so Issei, that's his base form, right? Is being able to use the dragon arm and being able to, but this gives him one more significant ability that is going to kind of fuel his other abilities. And I think it's called Boost Gear or something, but I can't quite remember that, so I'm just going to call it Boost. His ability Boost, which is doubles his power every 10 seconds in his human form up until the limit of his human body, right? So every 10 seconds he becomes twice as powerful as he was previously, which is insane, obviously. But that's just the very, very tip of things. See, he also has the capability to turn his whole body into that dragon form that his arm has taken. So, and in that form, there is no limiter on the boost ability, technically, because while he doesn't have a set limit to how powerful he can become, there is a time limit on how long the ability can be active. That time limit is 15 minutes. So while he doesn't technically have an upper limit that can't be reached or can't be surpassed, he does have an effective limit of multiplying his power by 2 to the power of 90, I think, if you do the math on that. And that is assuming he begins the boost at the 0-second mark of the dragon ability. But considering this dragon form raises his base level power to the point where instead of destroying a mountain, he can vaporize it, and he's doubling in power every 10 seconds, that's ludicrous to be able to reach that level of power, regardless of a limiter. And then he does have one other innate ability that becomes of him, which is known as the Juggernaut Drive, which he can forfeit an amount of his lifespan and an amount of his sanity for an instantaneous power-up. So he does just become a violent beast when he uses this, but, to get a power increase on top of such an already powerful form is, sometimes might be necessary. Throughout the series, he becomes so ridiculously strong. It is bastard level power scaling to a degree. Like, he fights demon lords, god level characters, cosmic beings, things like that. To the point where the 15-minute limit is kind of a formality, because he's moving at what is described as god speed in many times, which is essentially like the closest you can be to instantaneous movement. So 15 minutes might as well be literally eternity at that speed, but still. Yeah, and he has a bunch of other forms that he can reach, given, like, if he uses things like, depending on his opponents that he fights, he might be able to absorb their power and add it to his own. Depending on any specific demonic items he'll have on him, would be able to transform him. He's gone through a lot of transformations, but none of them are really innate to him. The ones I've described are just really his innate abilities, or his abilities are just expansions of those powers, right? And you might say, well, you're leaving out a lot of room for power-ups here. We'll get to that in a minute. But first, we're going to talk about Tatsumi. So Tatsumi is a adventurer character who joins the night raid after his best friends are murdered by royalty, because he realizes that the royalty in the city is so corrupt that there had to be a bandit guild of literal murderers to fight against them. And it is in the night raid that he gets trained by what was his name? I don't know, it's not important. He gets trained by another guy who's carrying what's known as an Imperial Arms, which is a ancient magical weapon formed usually by danger beasts of some sort. Danger beasts are basically just giant monsters with insane magical abilities. And his is known as Incursio, or the Living Demon Armor. So Incursio has a lot of innate abilities. One of them is invisibility, which is really cool. And then the other one is that it essentially responds to Tatsumi's willpower to a degree. He not only gains a huge amount of power just from being an Incursio, gaining superhuman strength, speed, and whatnot. And Tatsumi himself is a very powerful fighter. But it goes beyond just becoming stronger. He actually physically transforms his armor when he needs to become stronger. It's not like a calculation thing. It's just more like, in order, like, his willpower, it's not really willpower, but let's just say willpower. His willpower drives the armor's ability to transform. Which is crazy because this armor was made out of a danger beast that is basically just a demonic dragon. And we later find out that by using, in the manga at least, by using this transformations, he actually starts turning into that dragon, and the dragon will eventually take over his body if he continues to willfully transform. But, as I said previously, he technically does not have any limitations on what he can do. He's destroyed skyscraper-sized mech suit, like castle stone mech suits before. He's even fought beings with the ability to cancel out Imperial arms, and won with his Imperial arm, because it was so far ascended beyond what an Imperial arm could be that it actually was immune to that cancellation. He's become immune to things like toxins and freezing. He even fought through Esdeath's trump card, which is literally to freeze time. So, not to mention he was also immune to Esdeath's ice. So, yeah, Tatsumi is crazy. But getting into the fight, this analysis is actually going to be kind of interesting, because it's usually the opposite approach. So, on first glance, well, this is an easy win for Issei, because Issei's out there fighting like literal gods and like galaxy-level beings. It's like fucking Gurren Lagann out here, right? And Tatsumi, yeah, cool, he's fighting giant, castle robot stuff, but, like, what's that got to do with anything? Well, as I said, while that's true that both of these characters have completely different levels of feats, both of these characters technically do not have an upper limit in terms of what power they can attain. Any finite level of power that can be assigned to a feat is hypothetically within both of their reach. So, feats almost don't really matter. What matters is the limitations put on these characters with their ability to obtain power. So that's what we have to look at here. So, Issei's Juggernaut Drive, or not Juggernaut Drive, Issei's boost, and his Juggernaut Drive, to be fair. But his Juggernaut Drive is just a separate ability. Issei's boost is every 10 seconds. It's an automatic ability. And his ability, and with the upper limit being 15 minutes, like I said, moving at the speed he ends up moving at in the series, that basically doesn't mean anything. And even if Tatsumi was to match his speed, he would keep doubling in power every 10 seconds. So Tatsumi couldn't continue to do that. He couldn't just continue. And also, yes, there is a hypothetical limit to his power, but with it being at such an astronomical number, it's hardly relevant, even though I just said feats are not relevant, because, there's technically no limit to these characters. But I only say that because of the way Tatsumi's power-ups work. See, Tatsumi can become stronger at will, with, again, no defined upper limit, to the point where he ascended beyond what the characteristics of his weapon was. But doing so risks him being controlled by the dragon danger beast living inside his armor. And at that point, he just becomes a mindless beast, which is similar to something like the Juggernaut Drive, to be fair. So if Tatsumi could force Issei to use the Juggernaut Drive, let's say by matching his power multiple times over, yeah, then we might end up seeing those two dragons fight. But the problem is, Tatsumi has a limited number of times that he can match or exceed somebody's power, that he can willfully force his suit to evolve and power up. So even if he can force himself to become stronger than Issei, like I said, Issei is going to be doubling in 10 seconds later unless Tatsumi powers himself up to be umpteen times stronger than Issei. It's not going to matter in about 10 seconds. Though, like I said, moving at the speeds they'd be moving at, 10 seconds would be a very long time. So, but because Tatsumi can only do X number of transformations, he doesn't really have the opportunity to continue to gain power like Issei does. And it's also something he has to will to happen mid-fight. It's not something innate. Like, Issei could stand there brain dead and still be gaining power every 10 seconds. So, even though I did say at first glance this fight it's very different than it is at first glance, I still think Issei is going to have a significant advantage here. This became a very, like, almost meta-analysis of power scaling and versus communities as a whole, but that's how I think this fight is going to go. Is Issei Hyoudou? I don't know. That's how this fight's going to go. Is Issei's got this, right? And even if we put in the supplemental abilities, which like shouldn't really make too much of a difference in theory, Tatsumi's got things like invisibility. Issei also has the ability to see, to like X-ray people. I don't know if that would interact at all, but, you know, assuming that the invisibility works by reflecting light, the X-ray would be able to, yeah. But he can also, because it's a magical weapon, he can also disenchant Incursio in theory, or even, hell, he could snap his fingers and make Incursio fall off, since he can do that with clothing. I don't know if that works with demonic clothing or magical clothing, but, you know, in theory he could do that. So there's just too many reasons why Issei would win this, I think. But yeah, it would still be an awesome fight. It would still be an awesome fight to watch, I should say. It might be very one-sided, but it's one-sided for at least interesting reasons. So, anyway, Verbal Engine 95, see ya.